I'm probably not very good at sales pitches, but anyway, ETH made it into the top 10 universities worldwide, something that many people thought was never possible. Now, we know that Switzerland is actually quite good at innovation, and also in particular in computer science. That's why Google is here, that's why so many other companies are here, that's why we want to build a Swiss or even European Silicon Valley over here. You may remember that about 7 years ago, the European Commission came up with something unheard of, the flagship competition. That was a competition for projects sized 1 billion euros big, you know. And in the beginning, there were about 25 competitors. It was narrowed down to 6 projects, and among those, 3 of the finalists were led from Switzerland. And this was the Human Brain Project, this was Future ICT, that was Guardian Angels. Guardian Angels was about Internet of Things, using very little energy, in fact getting energy out of the environment so it could communicate and sense and measure forever, right? Now, a lot has happened since then, I should say. So at the time, actually almost nobody in the newspapers was talking about big data or data science or all this. Believe it or not, in the meantime, of course, every newspaper has at least 3 articles about these things every day. So a lot has changed. ETH has built a data science center. They've built a data science master studies program. They have built a citizen science center. They have built maker spaces. They're among the leading universities in the area of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity and all this. And now, of course, a lot has happened also in the real world. So within just a few years, actually, we have suddenly cloud computing and big data and artificial intelligence and cognitive computing and robotics and 3D printers and the Internet of Things and quantum computers and virtual reality and blockchain technology, you name it, and that's not even everything. So every one of these technologies can really change business totally and mess up entire economic sectors. And so basically businesses, services, business models, institutions, everything is changing, you know. And you always hear about the taxi companies without taxis and the hotel company without hotels and the money company without money, and so on. But you know, there are much more fundamental changes that many people don't talk about. Basically, we have a new money system, and the new currency is data. We have a new economy, and it's called attention economy, and it's based on surveillance capitalism, one could say. We have a new legal system too, and it's called code is law. That means we are creating algorithms that will change society, but it's not passed by democratic parliaments. We also have a new kind of politics that's using means of personalized messages in order to guide the attention and the decision-making and emotions, opinions, and behaviors of people. The idea was, in this way, we could make people more environmentally friendly and behave in a more healthy way and all these kind of things. But now suddenly people have a lot of concerns because democracy is at stake. Some people think freedom is perhaps at stake. Human dignity may be at stake. So, in principle, there are companies that know more or less everything about you, right? There are digital doubles that have been created. And so every click in the internet is being measured by some companies and evaluated to get a picture of your personality, of your health, of your economic status, and all this. And with this data, it's possible actually to know you better and manipulate you better than your friends. And this is being done right? Companies that in many cases we don't know and what they're doing with it, and by secret services, right? So in principle, we have become into a situation that makes some people feel uncomfortable and concerned, and AI is becoming very powerful, and we have locked it in certain places in the past, and now basically it's out there in the internet, and we cannot just pull the plug, right? So the point is, big data is a great thing. AI is a great thing, and all these other technologies, but like every technology, there are side effects, in some case unwanted side effects. There are possible dual uses and misuses, and we need to look at these more carefully in order to make sure that the digital revolution will bring the changes to our economy and society and everyone that we would all like to have. And I'm pretty convinced that we can build a better economy and society in the future. But suddenly they're totally new subjects. So we're in a perfect storm, we could say. We've seen it. CEO, President Eric Schmidt had to go. Mark Zuckerberg may have to go. We will see. So this is a perfect storm, right? So what are basically the next subjects coming up? So I personally think we are entering a second phase of the digitization. Now, people are talking about upgrading democracy in a digital way. They're also talking about democratizing the digital revolution. They're talking about design for values and say, why don't we build the values of our constitution, of our society, of our culture, and also with regard to our environment into those systems? We can learn this. Why don't we open up ourselves more in order to be more cooperative, learn from each other, allow for so-called combinatorial innovation? Because we're really faced with big problems. The United Nations expects from us that by 2030, we will be living in a sustainable world. That's within 15 years' time. They're expecting from us that we would reduce CO2 emissions by about 50% within 15 years. It means half of our economy would have to be reinvented. We have never done such a thing, How could we do that? How could we create the amount of innovation needed in order to really get those problems solved that we're faced with? And that requires we to mobilize all the resources of our society. That means to bring together the knowledge, ideas, and talents and resources of everyone. It requires to create information innovation ecosystems. We can only master this big challenge together. So there are many challenges out there, there are many great ideas out there, and of course you're busy with business, we understand that. But scientists, of course, are there in order to look forward beyond kind of a 3 or 5 years time period, maybe 10 years, or if possible even more. How would our society develop over time, right? So I've pointed out already a few years ago, it's probably not the best idea to try to build a Silicon Valley that works like a Silicon Valley and would have similar products and services like the Silicon Valley a few years later. We could never catch up because there's this exponential acceleration, right? And it means that even if we accelerate the same way, with a delay, the distance would even get larger, right? So we can only really catch up if we have a more than exponential growth rate. Yeah, exponential is bad enough in a sense, right? It is really crazy because every year basically we have a new kind of technology that's storming the markets, right? It's really difficult to catch up and understand all this and see the implication of those technologies. That in principle, if we really want to make that transformation within 15 years, we need to be even faster than that, and that speaks for combinatorial innovation. So there are a lot of things ahead of us, and we should really do them together. Now I have to check what I forgot to say. So, what is a good product and service? A good product would be one that if you had a daughter that's colored and maybe lesbian and has a serious disease, you would feel comfortable about this product being used by your daughter. So as long as vulnerable people are exposed and discriminated by these technologies, is not a good product, I think. It's even a better product if it doesn't just help you as a company and your customers, but if it also has benefits for society. And this entire idea of building information innovation ecosystems is that even your customers, those who deliver it to you, everyone would have a benefit from this. And if every company would produce these kind of products, you would benefit from the products of all the other companies too, right? So this is basically the principle of indirect reciprocity that everyone could really benefit. And yes, I do think academic institutions will be needed also in times of big data, even though Chris Anderson has claimed if we just have enough data, we don't need theory, we don't need science anymore. Not true, actually. There's more data out there than you can ever process. And that means that you need to know what data to look at and how to process it. And that, in the end, needs scientists to decide this, right? So this is one thing. The other thing is that your companies are, in many cases, big companies. So they're like super tankers, and they want to change, but it turns out to be difficult, right? So let other people at these academic institutions make the experiments that you can't do. Create a playground for them where visionary ideas can be tried out and observe what is happening. And when you think, oh, this is interesting, you know, I could turn that into a product, then you should be the first one to be there and do this. But I'm pretty sure that we can build better institutions than we have them even today. So at the moment, for example, we don't have something like Media Lab as we have it in Boston, right, at the MIT. I think we should be building digital labs throughout Europe, and they should have some specialization. They should be networked with each other. For example, in The Hague, we're currently planning to build a so-called Peace Lab. Now, of course, The Hague is the city of peace, but what is a Peace Lab? A Peace Lab is more, or peace room actually. A peace room is more than a war room. You all know what a war room is, so basically if you are in a difficult situation, you need to take decisions, you collect all the data, and then you take decisions, and they will be put into practice like, in a more or less military way, at least in a hierarchical way. So a command and control thing, and I believe actually we can do better than that. We can do better if we make sure that the data will be used in a democratic way, if we make sure that the data will be used in a scientific way. Scientific means also interdisciplinary. That means many different views need to be taken into account to come up really with an integrated perspective and solution. We need to have more transparency, I believe. Also to learn about mistakes that we make. We need to have more ethical considerations, and we need to have more openness. That means participatory opportunities for NGOs, for civil society, citizen scientists, and so on. So these are just a few ideas. I hope that was a little bit inspiring, and it's great you're having these events over here. So have a nice evening.